Oh, yay.
Yep. Start recording on OBS now, and we're going to start recording on the mixer in five. Have you shared it?
It's posting now.
Okay.
Yeah, there it goes.
Okay. Everybody's phone on silent.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We can start recording on the mixer in five, four, three.
Identifying as a mom, daughter, conservative, friend, parental rights activist, Republican Party delegate, lover of freedom, conspiracy theorist, mama bear, and force to be reckoned with, this is Raising Liberty with Lindsey Beckham. Hello. Am I on? Am I good? Okay. Happy Friday, everyone. I say that every week because it's always Friday when we're filming this podcast, and I'm super excited to be here today, especially with all of the breaking news that's been taking place over the last 24 hours. And today I am especially honored to be joined by Senator Kathy Chism, who is one of our conservative Republican senators in the Mississippi legislature who I admire and respect and just really look up to her and all that she does, especially during session and honestly throughout the entire year. So there's been a lot of interesting things happening in her world here lately. So I wanted to have her on so that she could talk about that. Senator Chism actually was the author of a resolution that we voted on and passed unanimously a few weeks ago at our state GOP convention. And so I wanted her to be able to talk a little bit about that and what inspired her to want to pass a resolution like that. And also, she has been kind of a little famous here in the last couple of weeks because she found out some information and she stopped some illegal, I guess we can't say illegal aliens anymore, but some illegal immigrants from coming into the state of Mississippi. So I wanted her to be able to share about that and how she found out about what was happening and how she was able to put a stop to that before it actually transpired. So Senator Chism, thank you so much for being here. And I guess we'll just jump right into it. So tell us a little bit about what's been going on in the last couple of weeks and how all of this came to light.
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. It has been really a wild couple of weeks, maybe close to 3. But I received a phone call on Saturday, May the 11th, that there were going to be like 650 to 700 Guatemalans to come into Mississippi, into New Albany, which is a really small town. It's like population 7,500, 8,000 right in there somewhere. So they were coming in, they thought on the 11th, and when I got the phone call that morning, then I thought, well, it's too late to do anything about it. But then I found out, no, it wasn't the 11th. I got the date mixed up. It was going to be the 18th. So that gives me a whole week to work on it. Well, I'm at the ball field watching my grandkids play ball, and they're really good. Let me throw that one in there. My youngest grandson, he got 2 home runs last night, or night before last, back to back. So anyway, back on.
That's fun for you.
It's a lot of fun for me. I love to see my grandkids hit that home run, run around the bases, and they're all really good. I got to brag on them a little bit, you know.
Absolutely.
That's my babies. So when I made the phone call and I found out, well, no, it's going to be next week. Then I did send a text to our governor, and he said that he would look into it and get back with me. I'll make a long story kind of short. I had not heard anything by Monday, but I had also called my Republican women after I found out about what was going to take place in our town. And nobody in the town really knew about this when it happened, when I found out. And it had been going on for 2 months, and we didn't know. They were keeping it under radar. Mm-hmm. And so I let my Republican women know about it, and, you know, Republican women go to bat. So they started making phone calls, and then I received a phone call from one of the representatives over in Northeast Mississippi asking, well, what are you going to do about it? Because it had just happened to him, and nobody knew about that either. And I said, well, I'm working on it. Do you have any suggestions? I'm always open-minded. I'll listen to anything. And he gave me some ideas. So Monday morning, I had not heard back from the governor yet. And I'm not saying he wasn't working on it, but I'm just saying I had not heard back from him.
Mhm.
And up front, let me tell you to begin with, I give all the glory to God that we got this stopped. And I'm not going to say I stopped it, but it did get stopped, and I do give God all the glory.
Well, you definitely brought awareness to it for sure.
Brought awareness to it. So then on Monday, I'm talking to one of the other senators, and I was told, if you haven't heard back from the governor's office, call him or call his office, and I did. And I was told that they would work on it that day, and I'm sure they did. You know, everybody's really busy, so
Right.
I don't want to just dog anybody out because I'm sure they worked on it. But anyway, that afternoon, I still had not heard back and had been told that morning that I would hear back. So on Monday morning, I'm going to back up just a little bit, and then I'll go with the rest of the story. But on Monday morning, I had been told that there was going to be a supervisors meeting. And I made it to the supervisors meeting. I had kind of heard about it and maybe talk that shouldn't have been talked. So I just show up at the meeting, and in walks our chief of police. And he starts apologizing right off the bat. He says, I owe an apology to the sheriff's department and to the supervisors of the county because I've been knowing about this for over 2 months, and I just didn't feel the need to call anybody. And I'm sitting there thinking, there's 700 coming in here, bus loads, and there was no need to call anybody. So the supervisors ended up voting, and I had to leave the room for them to vote.
Right.
And then I find out after the vote that we had two supervisors that said absolutely not, no. And I want to give a shout out to them. That was Chad Coffey and Sam Taylor. And I'm so proud of them for standing up for our people because they were going to use our fairgrounds, which is taxpayer money.
So I was just about to ask you, where were they going to put all of these people coming into the city?
The church had actually contacted the fairgrounds, which is like a block from the church. It's the Glenville United Methodist Church that was doing this. So it's really a private event. They had called out to the fairgrounds to get permission to park the buses out there because they didn't have room to park the buses. And that was somewhat my proof that they were being bussed in, because later in the story you'll understand why I said that. So then I tell our chief of police, okay, so now you're using taxpayer dollars, the fairground, to have this event instead of at the church because you're wanting to contain everybody into one place. And you're also using taxpayer dollars to secure them, to give them security. And also the lady at that church, who is the reverend, had called that, I think that morning maybe, asking for more security because of everything that was going on since Saturday. The preacher of that church accused me of trying to start a riot. I'm not trying to start a riot. I'm trying to stop what's happening here.
Right.
So anyway, to move on from that meeting, then Tuesday morning, I call back to the staff at the governor's office. And again, I'm not saying he wasn't working on it, because I'm sure he was busy, because he has more than just that one thing on his agenda. And I didn't get an answer that afternoon. I called back again. I didn't get an answer. And on the day before, because I wasn't getting anywhere, I felt like I was just beating a dead horse here. I just wasn't getting anything. I did make a call to D.C., and it was actually to Trent Kelly's office, and they did do exactly what they told me they would do. I was on the phone with them, and they said, we'll have to call you back because we do have the Guatemalan embassy on the phone. They called me back, and in their defense, they told me what they were told, that these people coming in had green cards, that they were legal, but they're coming there for like passport renewals, birth certificates, marriage license. And then I'm like, and this is just my thinking, I'm like, now wait a minute, if they're coming here for passports and birth certificates and marriage license and things like that,
How are they legal?
how are they
They
legal?
don't have those things already.
That's right. You know, I'm like, they had to have that when they came here. Then I'm told, well, you know, they have to get the passports renewed when they run out so they can get back to their country. Well, as you know as well as I do, never are they ever shipped back to their country.
Right.
So then I'm thinking, well, okay, for the benefit of the doubt, maybe that's right, but why should they have to get their birth certificates from their country? They had to have that to get their passport to begin with.
Right.
Or to get their green card, so they should have brought it with them. It's just a lot of unanswered questions for me.
Right.
And then I said, can you guarantee me that everybody on these buses are going to be legal? And then it was said to me, no, I can't guarantee that. And I don't blame them. That's what I was said too, cover my tracks. And so then I'm on my part, I'm thinking, well, there's no guarantee that they're all legal. It would take at least 14 to 15 buses to bring that many in, because on the average you have 50 people to the bus. So fast forward again, we're back on Tuesday, late Tuesday afternoon, right after I'd made my second call and wasn't getting an answer. Then I received a call, and I vowed not to tell who this person was, but I received a call, and this person started asking questions, what's going on? And I told them everything that had happened, and they said, have you not called your governor? Well, yeah, I have, but I don't have any answers back yet, so I can't tell you any more than that. And then about that time, I did get a text message from the governor's office, and they told me that they were only going to accommodate 500 to 600 people, and those people were already in New Albany. And I'm like, no, they're not either. So I read the text message to this person, and this person said, do you have any proof that they're going to be bussed in? I said, I can't prove anything, but I can tell you that the church out there has called the fairgrounds, and they've asked permission for all of these buses to park on the fairgrounds. So for me, that's proof that they're going to be bussed in. And this person said, okay, I'm going to make some calls first thing in the morning, because it was late on Tuesday afternoon. Wednesday morning by 10 o'clock, I received a call that the event was called off. Now, I'm saying that to say I don't know who called it off. I don't know who is the procuring cause of it being called off. All I know is that I have found out about the event going to take place, and I went to work on it. And again, I give God all the glory, and I want to give a shout out to the Republican women, because they worked really hard to help me, and we worked together. We helped each other, and here we are. It was
I think a lot of people almost seem shocked that this was happening, in Mississippi. I did a little work last summer with Americans for Prosperity, and so they send people out knocking on doors and surveying and finding out what the issues are that the people really care about. And one of the questions that we were asking people is, do you feel like the economy is the number one issue that our president and Congress should be concerned with? And I bet you 90% of people that I asked that question to said to me, no, I am concerned about the economy, but I'm more concerned about our border. Exactly. And the people that are coming across our border. I wonder how Mississippi or Union County became a place that they wanted to come to. Do you know how that transpired, or what made them want to come to that particular part of Mississippi, or Mississippi in general?
I don't really have an explanation for that, but I can tell you that one of our representatives is a member of that church. And I don't know if the connection was through, and it's Sam Creekmore. I don't know if the connection was through him. He's on the board of that church. He probably knows way more about it than I do. I can't answer for him, but personally, I make that connection like, okay, we have a representative who knows what's going on with the illegals, and he's a member of that church, and they're coming. Why to that church, Yeah. So I don't know. I can't tell you for sure exactly how that happened.
Of course, this is pure speculation on my part, but it seems almost as though, or it's funny, it's ironic that this is happening so close to a big presidential election. I almost wonder if they are bringing people into small towns all over the country in order to get them registered to vote, or attempt to get them registered to vote, so that they can spin an election a certain way.
I found out on Saturday the 11th. On Friday the 10th, There were 3 illegals that walked into the Union County Courthouse to register to vote. They were turned away because I don't know what kind of background check was done, but they were turned away because it was declared that they were illegal. So if you think about it, in North Mississippi, especially in my district, my area, Northeast Mississippi, period, we had 2 incumbents this past election that they lost in my area. So those 2 incumbents would probably want to get a lot of your illegals shipped into that area if they could get them registered, turn the votes over the way they want it to go.
Because in a city with 7,500 people,
7,500 to 8,000,
and then you bring in 6 to 7. I mean, that's a lot of people for somewhere
that small. Now, the county itself in whole is 28,000, but that's still small, really small. But the city of New Albany is like 7,500, 8,000, right in there somewhere. I think the last census was like 7,800, right in there somewhere.
Well, thank you for bringing the exposure to that and helping to stop that before it started. I think that a lot of people in your town would have been very upset had they woken up and all of these people had been bussed in and are now
terribly.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I know you and I know your area, and I know that they would not have approved of that happening.
Yeah.
I don't even know where I want to go with the Trump situation because what happened yesterday? Where were you when you heard the news yesterday that he had been convicted on all counts?
I was sitting in my kitchen. I'm a huge Trump supporter. Have been since 2015 when he first came out. I absolutely adore Trump. He's awesome. If he's sitting in the middle of a jail cell, I will vote for him for president. That's how much I like him. That's just devastating. I can't believe our country's doing this. But then again, you look at everything else that's going on around us. So I'm not shocked. I'm devastated, but I'm not shocked. Not a whole lot of difference there, but it just turns my world upside down. I worry. My biggest worries, too, first of all, are they going to steal the election again like they did before? And then second of all, I worry that he could be assassinated. They hate him that bad on the left wings.
That was my thought. My first thought was if he goes to jail, someone is going to kill this man. But I know they said he is supposed to have Secret Service protection. And then I also saw in the Clarion Ledger that Benny Thompson had brought forth some sort of bill that he wanted to do away with Secret Service protection for anyone convicted of a crime, even if it is our former president. So, it's almost like they want him to be assassinated.
They're setting it up so that he can be, in my opinion. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but that's always a thought. And I may be politically incorrect for saying some of the things I'm saying, but I just spit it out there like I think it.
Yeah. You wrote a resolution, and tell me kind of tell us about that resolution and what inspired you to do that.
Resolution 91, like I said, I've always been a Trump supporter, so this resolution was really important to me. And the resolution was to say that the Mississippi Senate does not believe that Donald J. Trump is guilty of the accusations and the insurrections that he has been accused of. And I really, in my heart, do not believe it. I asked, it went to Rules Committee, and I asked if it was going to come out, and I was told no. So I didn't say anything else right then. The next morning, I was approached and said, the person asked me, you remember the question you asked me yesterday about the resolution? Yes. Well, it's not coming out. And I'm like, why is it not coming out? And they said back to me, well, if I let that one come out, I have to let Juneteenth and all the others come out. And I said, well, let them all come out. Bring them to the floor. Let us vote on them.
Right.
Because if we do that, then we see who's Republican and who's not.
That's right.
So he said, well, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to listen to all the controversy on the floor. That's what we're here for. Bring them out. Because if you brought out and I didn't say this, I'm telling you, if you brought out my resolution 91, then we would see who's really a Trump supporter and who is not.
Mm-hmm.
So, as everybody knows, Delbert Hosemann is the one that has control over killing
right.
bills, whether they want to admit it or not.
And to explain that a little bit, Delbert Hosemann is our lieutenant governor, and therefore he assigns the committees and the committee chairs. So all bills, once you start the legislative session, are assigned to a committee, and those committee chairs know which bills
they are not.
yeah.
They know. They're told. You know, you kill this bill and you let that bill go. Well, Delbert Hosemann can pretend to be a Trump supporter all he wants to, but he is not a Trump supporter. And most of my colleagues would say you don't need to say things like that, but honesty is the best policy.
Mm-hmm.
Transparency is something that we don't have enough of.
Absolutely.
And it's very transparent to everybody in the state that Hosemann is the one that put the word out there and told Trump to go jump in the Gulf of Mexico.
Right.
So to tell him that, I would guess that he's not a Trump supporter. So I think that's the reason my bill did not come out. One of the reasons, my resolution, not my bill.
How did that resolution end up at the state convention?
That I don't know. I didn't know that was going to happen. I was not at the state convention. And then I received a phone call later that afternoon when it was voted in. And some of the Republican women, they were so happy that it was there, and it did. They said it was a unanimous vote, so I was really proud of that.
It was unanimous because I'm a delegate this year. It was my first time being involved at that level, and so seeing how that process worked, and it was really eye-opening. But there were folders in all of our seats, and there were only three pieces of legislation or three bills that we actually voted on.
Really?
And one was honoring someone, and then there was a ranked choice voting piece of legislation, and then your resolution concerning Donald Trump. And there were some actually some J6ers that were there at the state convention, and I did not realize that they are still arresting people, showing up at people's houses and arresting people even right now in our current time, that just if their cell phones pinged within a radius of the state capitol, of our nation's capital on January 6th, those people they're showing up at your door and arresting you. And I was like, how can they do that when they don't even know if these people actually went inside the Capitol or if they were even there for anything like that? It just, it's kind of mind-blowing that they're still arresting people, and that's what they're using to base these arrests on.
Yeah. We have a J6er that lives in my district. He lives in Blue Springs, Sheldon Braden. He super, super nice guy, and he's going to have to go to court in August, I believe. So we need prayers for him that he's not convicted and doesn't have to go to prison, because he's looking at prison time.
I just can't imagine how scary that is, living years not knowing what's to come, what's going to happen. How is this going to affect their lives permanently?
I believe that it was all set up anyway. I just, in talking to him, it's nothing like what they're accusing them of. This is more of this insurrection stuff. You know, it's crazy. It's just crazy. I would have never thought that I would see America in the shape that it's in today. I just never would have thought I would live to see this.
I'm concerned either way this election goes in November of what will happen. Riots going to break out in the streets? Are we going to see an actual insurrection? You know, I don't, it's to be seen, I guess, but it's going to be very interesting. Very interesting
and could be dangerous. So.
Right, exactly. So we just finished up, I guess, less than a month that you've been out of session. So y'all had a long session.
We had a long session.
It was a new, y'all just coming off of an election year, so had to orientate the new legislators, which I don't know that y'all actually need a month to do that, but
no, not really.
But that's I guess that's what the law has been. Yeah. So it was an extra long session this year. What did you see happen that you wanted to happen, and what did you not see happen that you felt like should have happened in this session?
I'm very pleased that we're keeping boys out of girls' bathrooms and locker rooms. That
You
bill,
know, that was my passion. That was the bill I was just so passionate about this session.
and I'm just tickled to death that that one went through. I'm
The
not
very last minute.
I'm not happy that there's one bill, and I may get beat up for this one, but the Glock switch device that was made illegal in the state of Mississippi. Not that I don't want it to be illegal, but then again, it's going against our Second Amendment rights, and kind of makes the playing field uneven because your convicted felons or your criminals, they're still going to have the device, but we won't in Mississippi. So unevens playing field. There's several bills that went through that are good bills that I was pleased, and then there's some that died that I thought should have gone through.
What legislation? Tell me about some of the stuff that you authored this session that you didn't get out of committee, or that
mine will never come out of committee. Hoseman won't let them come out, but that's okay. There's one bill that actually not my bill. It was my bill. Last year, I introduced the bill to save our gas stoves. Ted Cruz has worked really, really hard because Biden's trying to take our gas stoves away from us.
Right.
And there's no way that a restaurant can cook on an electric stove. That's just not going to happen. So I had dropped the bill, and I was the original author. And then this year, I think Hoseman knew that the bill really needed to come out. So Senator Chastanoff brought it out, and I'm proud that she brought it out because it did get passed. I was happy to see that come out. Now, I also have a bill that I introduced in 22, and I've introduced it every year since 22, 23, and 24. No patient left alone. My mother passed away of COVID in 21, and we didn't get to stay in the hospital with her while she had COVID. And then by the time she went into a coma and they took her out into a nursing home, then we could stay with her, but she never knew we were there. So I thought that it was just inhuman to have to die in the hospital without your family. And it's horrifying to me because I can still hear my mother's voice. She would call me from her cell phone screaming and begging, "Kathy, come get me, please come get." And I couldn't go get her. I mean, we didn't know much about the COVID at that time, and she had COVID pneumonia, which was even worse. So probably for the rest of my life, I'll hear her screaming over the phone, begging, and I can't even get the bill out of committee. So I think that's just terrible, and I'll leave it right there.
And it's funny because coming off of COVID, so many people in power in Mississippi legislature were saying this is something we're going to do. We're going to get this done so that this never has to happen again. People in our state won't have to die alone without their families. And like you said, they say these things and then they have bills, but we can't get them out of committee to even get them heard on the floor.
That's right.
So that's, I love the fact that Florida has sunshine laws, or they're a sunshine state, so everything is done out in the open, in the light.
Yeah.
I really wish that Mississippi would follow suit with that, although I don't know how we would ever get that passed because you wouldn't be able to get it out of committee to go to the floor.
Never get it out of committee. Of course, there's several things that I would like to happen in Mississippi. One of them is closed primaries. That'll never happen. I am glad that we did not end up ranked choice voting.
That was another last minute thing that was kind of, I think, snuck in somewhere, but I'm very glad that was banned in the state of Mississippi.
Right. And it would just be so nice if we could work hard enough to get the closed primaries. That would help us more than anything.
It would.
I really believe with all my heart that if we'd had closed primaries, Chris McDaniel would have won.
I agree.
But that's absolutely agree. Water under the bridge. No need in crying over spilt milk. Another bill that I have introduced for the last 2 years, and I'm going to work hard on it this summer and introduce it again, to tag the UTVs, and not the ATVs now, the UTVs, side-by-sides, because there's so many people that come from other states. In fact, the groups that that I usually ride with, we go to Arkansas because they have tags from North Carolina, Tennessee, other places. I think maybe Alabama, Arkansas. So their tags are recognized in Arkansas. We can go there, and if we have to go out on, but I don't have a tag, so when we go out on the road, if I get caught, I get a ticket. But it would be revenue for Mississippi, so I don't understand why they're not allowing this bill to come out. I mean, it's a simple bill. On the side by side, you have to have your windshield wiper, your signal lights, brake lights, horn.
It seems like that would make things safer as well.
It would make things safer, and in my bill, I do not allow you to be on like the 4 lanes. You've got to be on like 40 mile an hour or less, like your county roads. So you can't, even though those things are run 75 and 80 miles an hour, you can't go on the 4 lanes or anything with them. You've got to stay on your county roads. But it would be income because there's so many people that would pay. They wouldn't mind paying $100 for a tag just to be able to use their side-by-sides. And the farmers, it would be so much help to them because they have to come out of one field and go to another field. And these UTVs they're really helpful, especially for the farmers, to run from one field to the other. And they would gladly pay to get a tag, and it would just be revenue for the state. So I don't understand.
That seems like a no-brainer.
It does.
Speaking of farmers, I am a huge fan of our ag commissioner, which I know you are as well, Andy Gibson.
Love Andy Gibson.
And I was so proud of you this session when you stood up and really had his back and what they were trying to do with him and saying this is not right. So tell us kind of what happened there and how that ended up playing out.
They were trying to take control of the money that came in to the Ag Center, and of course, leadership knows, but probably most of your people, my constituents, would not know. There's a lot of money that's donated to the Ag Center from private donations, private organizations. And without Andy being in control, probably those donations won't be made anymore like they were. They will now since they got the bill straightened out, but in the beginning, when and I still don't like the bill, but they did satisfy Andy with it to some degree. So my thing was, why are you going to take the money that he brings into the Ag Center and put it in general funds, and then he has to come back and ask for the money back? I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Money that was donated probably because of his relationship with people that he has formed over his term.
Exactly. And I'm like, if you're going to give the money back to him, if he has to come and ask for it, and you really have full intentions of giving it back to him, why not let him keep it to begin with?
Right.
Do we not think he was a good steward of the money? Because Andy Gibson would be the best steward of the money, probably the most honest person that you could come up with right now. So I just went to bat for him because I felt like that they were doing him wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's other committees or other, like the Ag Commission, I'm sure there's others that they let them keep their money and keep control of it. When usually, if anything goes into the general funds, sooner or later it ends up paying for buddy projects. And I'm not fond of buddy projects.
Yeah. We heard awful lot of talk about the income tax and how we were going to remove the income tax in Mississippi. We're going to lower our grocery taxes in Mississippi. And then it seems that was not talked about at all.
It just kind of died.
It just kind of went away magically. So do you think that we'll ever see that happen in Mississippi? Is there any talk of
There's been some talk that probably next year it might come to the table. This year, as a rule of thumb, usually anything that could be really contradictive, that there could be a lot of controversial issues over it, it's going to happen the first year of the term because their way of thinking is like, okay, in 4 years, the people will forget about it.
Exactly.
So let's do the bad bills the first year. So this year was the Medicaid expansion, and thank you, Jesus, that was killed. That was a bad bill. So I'm really surprised that the income tax and the grocery tax did not come up. but it didn't. I'm guessing that it might come up next year. I don't know.
Hopefully, we will see that at some point.
Right.
That the fire behind that be reignited, because I think that would be a good thing for Mississippians. I mean, we've seen it in Florida, Tennessee, and yet Mississippians don't have that option because we can't get that done here.
Right.
Unfortunately, like we were talking about, sometimes leadership stands in the way of getting some good stuff done.
Right.
When we look at having a super Republican majority, yet we look
We
at the
don't
voting.
get Republican bills through.
Exactly. It shouldn't be so hard
Should
to
not.
get conservative legislation through. And then when you go and look at the actual voting records of our legislators, we almost are, or I guess we are, a purple state.
We're purple.
So getting closer and closer to being blue with a super majority of Republicans. How does that happen?
My personal opinion, I think that in each district, I think that the candidates need to be vetted way more than what they are. Political education to our constituents. I'm probably one of the world's worst. Before I got into politics 6 years ago, I could have cared less about what was going on, what they voted. But I think people are waking up now, and especially with the open borders and everything, they're beginning to pay attention politically.
Right.
So I think if we could educate our people politically, that it would be great. I always tell my Republican women, and most anywhere I go to speak, I tell them about the website, because that helps a lot. That is a lot of transparency for them. It helps. And then if they don't understand something, they can call their legislatures and ask. But if they'll just go to LEGISLATURE, legislature, not TOR, dot Senate, let's see, at dot
.gov.
Senate,
Is it .gov?
let's see, no, it's legislature.ms.gov.
Okay.
Yes, legislature at ms.gov. So, or .ms.gov, that's it. So if they would go there and just play around on that site and learn the site, they can see what bills are coming through, the ones that are dying in committee, the ones that maybe went to conference. They can see what their legislatures have voted, yay or nay. And I mean, it's really a good site, and it would be helpful if the people in Mississippi would stay on that site and educate themselves.
What was the turning point for you that got you involved in politics, that said, hey, I want to run for office, I've got to do something? What triggered that in you?
God Almighty. My nephew called me. It was in January. I'll never forget it, 2019. He called, and he has several different companies. He has construction. He's got several different. So he called and he said, Aunt Kathy, I need you to do something for me. He's always gone by boy. He probably doesn't even know his real name. So I say, okay, boy, what do you need? And I'm thinking, I got something broke down over here. Go pick up something, go run an errand or whatever. And he says, I said, okay, boy, what do you got? What do you need? And he says, well, I want you to run for Senate. And I just died laughing. I mean, I laughed out loud. And I said, boy, you fell and bumped your head. I'm not running for Senate. I said, I like politics, but I'm not getting into politics. And he said, no, you're going to run. I'm like, no, I'm not either. And you just have to know my husband. He's very, very negative. Now, he stands behind me. Anything that I want to do, he supports me, always has. I just couldn't ask for him to be any better than he is. But for him to get into politics, he hates politics, and he's very negative. I could just hear him right now saying, no, you don't need to do that. Give me all the reasons why not to. So that after we hung up, he kept telling me, yes, you are. And I, no, I'm not. And after I hung up, I called one of my best friends. She was a retired school teacher. And I said, you've been looking for something to supplement your income while you're retired. I have the perfect thing for you. And she said, what is it? And I said, run for Senate. It's an open seat. Well, she did to me what I did to boys. She just died laughing. She said, I can't even get up and speak in front of the teachers, and you think I'm going to get up in front of the whole state? And so we kind of dropped it. And when Bob came home, that's my husband, when he came home that night, I just put it in the back of my mind. I was done with it. but all afternoon before he got home, it was like I could just hear the Lord saying, "You're going to run. No, no, Lord, don't do this to me. Please don't do
Please
this
don't
to
do
me."
this.
And so then Bob comes home, and I'm like, not even thinking about it. The next night, we go to my brother's house. Wallace is Boy's daddy. And we go there for my brother's 50th anniversary. And I'm sitting on one side of the bar, and my husband is sitting to my right. Boy's sitting over across from me. And after we have cake and ice cream and all that good fattening stuff, then he says, "Okay, Aunt Kathy, let's finish this conversation." He comes around and sits by me on the left side. He said, "Aunt Kathy, let's finish this conversation." I said, "What conversation?" And Bob looked at him and said, "What conversation?" And then I looked at Boy and I said, "Okay, Boy, you started this. You tell your Uncle Bob what you're wanting me to do." He told him, and Bob's sitting there, and it's like this look I've never seen on his face. And he starts shaking his head, yes. And he said, "I think you should." And I'm like,
Oh,
"Lord,
wow.
where did this man come from? Who is this?"
That's not what you expected
That's
at all.
not what I expected. So then my brother and everybody is like, "You need to do this." And I'm like, "No, I'm not doing it." And so then I said, "I tell you what, I have another brother that's been into politics for years." And I said, "I'm going to call him in the morning. If he gives me his blessings, I'll run. But if he doesn't, then y'all have to leave me alone." So the next morning I called him, and lo and behold, he was all about me doing this. And so that's how I ended up here.
Well, you will have to tell Boy thank you from all the Mississippians that have seen how hard you've worked and the things that you are attempting to do in the state of Mississippi and the things that you're stopping from happening in the state of Mississippi. So thank you, Boy, if you're listening. We appreciate you.
I'll make sure he listens.
So, my passion is education and parental rights in the education system, and which we are just kind of seeing trampled on right now by the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell people they can do, or how to get involved, or how to be more active in order to stop this government overreach and this usurping of parents and their rights in our state?
Stay on your legislature in your district, your representative, your senator. Stay on our leadership in Jackson. Because the more voices they hear, they think it doesn't make a difference, but it does. I can tell you from my experience the last 2 weeks, because the more people that I got involved, then it's all of a sudden like, "Oh, we better do something."
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for those votes 4 years from now.
Right.
So if there are enough people that really show interest and make a lot of loud noise, then they're going to listen. I want to back up just a minute. Representative Dan Eubanks, he camps beside me. Super, super good guy.
Yes.
And he was talking to me actually a day or two prior, maybe, to April the 9th. I believe that date is correct. He had gotten wind that they were going to bring in like 2,000 illegals into Tunica and put them in that Grand Casino.
Right.
And they were already revamping the hotel and everything. Well, he made some calls, but until after this deal happened in New Albany, he still had not heard back from anybody. He wasn't getting anywhere with it. But then when everybody started raising up about it, then things started happening. And I think our leadership now is working on trying to get that stopped. I don't know if they will or not. But
I saw him on Gallo. He was on Gallo a few days ago, or maybe last week. And I think he was as shocked as anyone else. He couldn't believe that this was happening.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to me that this is happening not just in one area, but in several areas across the state. And this hotel or this casino in Tunica, I mean, who is paying for these immigrants to stay in these hotels? I'm sure
The
it's
government.
So us.
So we are your taxpayers. I'm told that they'll pay $150 a day per person. So do the math on 150 times 2,000. That's a lot of money. And
has Dan gotten any answers about why they are coming here? Is this also so that they can renew documents, or are they trying to come to live here? What?
these are going to be minors. They're all
Oh, wow.
minors from 4 years old to 17 years old. So we're going to have to pay to educate them. We're going to have to pay for their medical services. We're going to have to feed them, everything. Not that I don't want to take care of the children,
Mm-hmm.
but they should be in their own country with their parents.
Right.
You
How did they
know,
get here? Where are they?
I guess coming across the border, I don't know, and get separated from their parents, or they're sent here. Now, this is strictly hearsay. That I'm
Mhm.
not saying this to be the truth, but I've been told that maybe their parents sold them, you know,
Yeah.
and you got human trafficking, just all kinds of things.
And I mean, that's one thing we've seen such an increase of human trafficking and fentanyl, and
Yeah.
both of those things coming directly from this open border. I know that the Biden administration was saying that they were wanting Congress to pass a bill that dealt with the border. But my thought process on that is, why can't we just enforce the laws that we've always
Build
had?
the wall.
Well, yeah, build the wall, but we've always had
Enforce the
laws about
You
our
know,
concerning our border.
Well, Senator Hill had a really good bill this time, and you might know it died in committee.
Sure.
But it was a bill that if illegals were caught in Mississippi, they would immediately be arrested and deported. What better bill could you have?
Mhm.
Send them back to their country. I don't have a problem with anybody coming to the United States if they come legally.
Right. Do it
Get
the right
your
way.
passport. Yeah, come the right way. And if you want to become a citizen, do it the right way.
Mhm.
But don't come across that border. If the ones that are coming across the border, excluding the little kids, because you can't call them criminals, but they're letting the worst of the worst out of jail in your other countries that are coming across the border.
Mhm.
If they could legally come here and become citizens, they wouldn't have to cross the border like that. They wouldn't have to sneak into the country. You know, when the Guatemalans started across the southern border of Mexico, the crime rate went up so high, just devastating that, you know, Mexico was trying to close down. They started securing their border on the south side to keep them from coming through. So what does that tell you?
Right. I've seen videos from the border in Texas where it's just outrageous. I don't even know anybody sneaking through anymore. They're just coming
walking
on through,
now.
and
Yeah.
who knows who these people are, or like you said, they could be criminals, what they've done in their past, and it just it's a scary
Well, look what's
thing.
happened in New York. You know, it's the criminals, the illegals that are killing people and beating them up, raping people. All of that's going on, like New York. Well, several other towns too, other cities, not just New York. But
Right.
it is sad. We're at a sad time.
It really is, and it just, in the back of my mind, I can't stop thinking about the fact that this election is right around the corner, and what that's going to mean, what
Yeah.
all of these illegals are going to mean in the election, not just in Mississippi, but across the country.
Across the
They're
country.
everywhere,
Yeah.
and there's so many of them. And are they going to get to vote, or are they not going to get to vote? Like, we don't know, because it's just I don't think there's a precedent for this, because we haven't seen this many be able to come into our country so quickly like this before.
Right.
So that's a scary thought
It is a scary thought.
in my
Terrible.
mind.
Terrible.
So this would be your 5th year
My 5th year.
in the legislature.
Yes.
Well, I respect you so much, and I'm
Thank
so
you.
thankful for you for being there and being an actual conservative voice for Mississippians, and for following the Republican Party platform. It's so easy to just follow the platform and be a Republican, and yet we see a lot that don't do that.
Well, when that happens, when you do follow the platform most of the time, maybe not all the time, then you end up like me. I only had a vice chair the first 4 years, and that was taken away from me. And I said that's because
You campaigned for Chris.
yeah, I campaigned politically incorrect last year. But you know what? If I had it to do all over again, I'd do the same thing, because I felt like I was campaigning for the right person.
Yeah.
But most of them that end up in Jackson, you know the story as well as I do. If you want to keep your chairmanship, you're going to pretty much do what
You do what you're told. Fall in line.
Yep. Now, I really have a lot of respect for Senator Hill because now she'll fight him. She still now she did get bunked down, I think, to maybe Constitution, I think is the one that she's chairman of now. So,
Yeah, I think that's right.
yeah.
She had some great bills this session.
She had some great bills, and they all died.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
So when you are here for legislative session, you said you stay at is it the fairgrounds where y'all?
Yes, I
they
stay
call it the
out.
camper caucus.
Yeah, the trailer trash, I
Trailer-
think, is the way they refer to us. Yeah.
Well, like, there's a trailer trash bash
Trailer
at some
trash
point.
bash, that's
It
right.
was earlier this session than it normally
Well,
is.
only because we have 4 months instead of 3, because it's
Right.
usually at the end of the 3 months.
Mhm.
And yeah, they all and it's growing. You know, we don't have just our trailer trash now. We have newcomers that come
Yeah.
out, visitors that come out for.
When
for the
you're
event.
here or when you're in Jackson for session, tell me how do you feel safe or with all the crime running
do.
rampant in Jackson? Do you do feel
I do feel safe because we have more Capitol security now. The first years that I was here, first couple years, I felt safe. I didn't have an uneasy feeling, although I knew there was a lot of crime even right around my camper. One night, it was after midnight, I woke up, and this was the first year that I was here, and I woke up to this lady like screaming to the top of her voice, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And it was right at the end of my camper out in the street, like 50 feet maybe from my camper. And I raised up. I was fixing to get up to see what, is this lady in distress? Is somebody hurting her? What's going on? And about the time I raised up, there was 4 gunshots. She was shooting at her boyfriend or
oh my goodness.
whoever he was. And so I laid back down real quick because I thought it's a whole lot harder to hit me horizontally than it is
Yes.
vertically. So I laid back down real quick. That happened. It didn't upset me or anything, but it was like, maybe it's more dangerous than I thought. But now we do have more Capitol security, and it's a lot better. I didn't hear near as many gunshots this year
Now that Capitol Police is
So, I mean, gunshots.
way to be
are-
optimistic and positive.
I'm telling you.
I love it. Look, a couple years ago during session, the Freedom Caucus guys had gone over to the office, which they were sharing with MCPP, and there was a tornado. And so they were all
Yes.
holed up because this tornado was coming. And one of them texted me and said, the most Jackson thing ever just happened. They looked out the window, and someone is carjacking their truck in the middle of a tornado of our legislators. So it was like, where are you safe? I think that was before the CCID and Capitol
Yeah.
Police kind of took over.
Yeah.
I do think they're doing a good job of hopefully keeping y'all safe over there
They
since
are.
there are less gunshots now.
There are less.
I mean,
Well, up until this year, it was nothing to hear gunshots all night long. And one of the other senators had heard the fully automatic guns, and I had not. Now, this year, I did hear the fully automatic guns, and they were pretty close. And I was like, oh, my goodness, this is, getting serious here.
yeah.
But I didn't hear near as many.
Well, good. When is I mean,
I
gotta
know
take the positives where you can. Where
he
you can
doesn't understand. I mean, like, you're sitting in your camper every night, you're going to hear gunshots. My husband would come down the first year, a time or two. He hates politics, as I said before. So he doesn't come very often. He says, just send me a postcard or come home this weekend. So anyway, when he did come down, he would be sitting there and like, I hear gunshots. Somebody's shooting out there.
like in shock because that's not normal where you're from.
Not in town, not
Yeah.
in the city,
Yeah, that'll scare you. That'll make you jump.
It will get your attention.
Yes. We passed legislation last session, speaking of guns, that in schools, teachers can choose to take this extra training and be able to carry on school campuses, which I was in full support of
I am
because
too.
I believe if you're going to go shoot up a school and you have a school where teachers are armed and you have a school where there aren't guns, which one are you going to go to
That's right.
shoot? obviously you're going to go where you know there's not a
Yeah.
chance of a teacher pulling a gun and shooting you before you can do the damage that you want to do. So I was in full support of that, but I know a lot of people don't feel like that is safe. They tried to pass that in Tennessee this past session there, and I don't know if they ended up getting it done or not, but they had teachers holding these death protests at school where they're laying down and pretending as though they're dead, which to me is just so dramatic because
It
we've got to
is
protect
dramatic.
our kids.
You know, even in the churches, our church has a full security team. We're way out in the country, but still, anybody that's going to, if they're going to do any shooting at all in a church, they're not going to. They're not going to select a church that has a full security team
Right.
that's armed and standing at the doors. They're not going to do that. You know, there's several churches over the country that's had shootings, mass shootings in the past, 4 or 5 years, maybe a little longer.
Yeah.
And probably most of those churches were not armed.
You're probably right. I'm sure that we're seeing that become more common, though. Churches
more
have
common.
security teams because you have to at this
Yeah.
point. The world has gotten so crazy.
And in the church, they don't let just anybody carry the gun. You have to have the training, and that because if you do carry a gun in the church, you know that's a public place, so you have to have the training and know what to do.
Right. I'm interested to see how many teachers actually want to do this training. I know they get a small stipend for doing it, but then they have to want to do it. It's not required. So I talked to Sean Tyndall about it, who was making sure that the training they put together is perfected, and I believe they were going to start training teachers this summer. So I'm interested to see how many teachers take them up on that, but I think it's definitely a good thing for our state.
I love Sean Tyndall. He's a really good one. I think he'll do great with it. I think that maybe more people will be interested. I think it's a good thing. I support it 100%. Because you do have, even women in some of the schools that are going to be very supportive of it, you have different types of people. That's what makes the world go round. You have some that are going to be, hey, I would take the training and I would try to protect these kids. Then you have others like, I'm not going to touch a gun. I'm scared of a gun. So,
right. That's exactly right. So I know you're a big supporter of Second Amendment rights and
absolutely,
and free speech, First Amendment. I mean, I know those are kind of the things that you stand on.
absolutely,
constitutional conservative, and so
sometimes the free speech gets me in trouble.
Me too. Me too. But that's what we need. We need more of you in office. What are your plans this summer? What are you going to do now that session's over?
Well, I'll come back 7 days a month for my constituent days. One of those was taken away from me, so now it's 7 instead of 8, but that's okay. I have my 4 grandchildren. They're the apple of my eye, and of course they'll be going to their lake house here in another month probably. I'll just have to make a trip over there to see them, but we have a trip planned to Colorado and a few different things. I'll
you deserve
stay busy.
it. You deserve to have some trips and after this long legislative session. But I just admire you, and I'm just so thankful that we do have some actual conservatives who follow the Republican Party platform in the Mississippi legislature. So thank you for all you do. And
absolutely.
I think we'll be speaking next week together in Tupelo at a meeting. So that will be fun to be able to be there at the same time. And I just thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming and telling everyone what you've learned about this immigrant situation and how dire it is that we are paying attention and
we need to
watching.
pay attention. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Pay attention, speak out. Don't just sit back and do nothing. Don't be afraid to speak out. Everybody should be heard.
That's exactly right. Well, thank you so much, Senator Chism. We appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on the show, and thank you for your prayers and support.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, that's it for today. We will see everyone next week.